All right. So today we're going to go over the fourth section of freeCodeCamp, the responsive web design course, and the mini projects. And then, like I said, after the holidays, we were going to get back to it. So we're back. Tomorrow I'll do a live stream as well, and I'll do 2 projects on it. So it'll be a longer live stream. But either way, we're going to go through these. The mini projects were building a newspaper, essentially, like a news website, and then the other one was building like a picture, again, just like the cat one, but it was building a city skyline, and you kind of change it from day to night, which we'll go over. So yeah, this one was pretty good. I mean, it looks just like you would see on any article website or anything like that, throwing in the pictures, ads, other things like that. But learned quite a few different things on here. As you can see, we've got quite a few things to go over here. Quite a bit of stuff going through here, broken it up into the different sections and everything. We even have something new called an aside. So an aside is essentially, you would use it for information that's pertaining to the article itself, but aren't necessarily exactly related to it. So like the image quote and things like this, because it's about coding and different certifications for that, you got the calculator and this to say you can build something like this along with it. We also have block quotes, which like this and like this you always see in articles. So it's just like a quote you'll take from it and insert it into a certain section of the article, obviously when it's related to it. So yeah, quite a bit of stuff on that. And then mostly with the styling, the CSS, we did quite a bit more stuff. So where to start? Let's start with... I guess something easy would be like the loading. So I believe it was in here, somewhere along here we have it. Loading is equal to, yeah, here we go. Loading is equal to lazy. Essentially, you deal with that a lot in the JavaScript mostly, but I guess with CSS you can too. It's probably just more efficient to do it with the JavaScript, but loading lazy, essentially it won't wait for this image here to load up before it loads up everything else. It'll load as asynchronistically with everything else as it loads. So that one's a really easy one, makes sense. So you'd want to throw that in for, like, especially this one. I believe we're pulling this in from the freeCodeCamp website. So yeah, of course it's got to search, pull that in, and then load it. So you don't want to have to wait for that all to happen before this all starts to get loaded. So that's something that you'll probably use quite a bit in most images. These icons as well, we pulled in from a third-party website here. So yeah, the lazy loading, easy, but definitely going to see it quite a bit. And with the grid display here, we learned some new things like grid template. We learned, here we go. So into here, we've got grid template, rows, we've got areas, and we've got columns. Obviously just dealing with rows, columns, whatever section it's in and stuff. So, of course, grid template rows determines what in the row changes. So this is 3 rows, of course. So auto, these are all going to have the same width, height, placement. With this one, we're changing the second row here to 4 EM instead of the 40 pixels like the other 2 rows. So as you can see, it gets bigger there. This one, all different. So this one with a minimum of 10 pixels, maximum of 60 pixels. This one an auto, so they're automatically placed there and to take up the space that remains evenly. And then these one 3CH, so they're different size. So yeah, pretty easy, but just so that you can autofill them rather than having to do each row by itself and do it that way. And then areas, we haven't really done this one yet, so I can't really speak too much on it, but I believe it is just filling the space in that's available inside of a thing, right? Specifies name grid areas, establishing the cells in the grid and assigning them names. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I haven't used that one yet. I imagine that's going to come up pretty quick here. And then the columns, here we go. Same thing as the rows, but just column form. Changing that. So yeah, just a quick hand way to establish the height, width, all that kind of stuff, and the placement of it when using the display of grid. And so we've gone through that. And min-max, this is just essentially setting the minimum and maximum for an area. A lot of the time for the window, like what we used it for a lot, the min-max for like the screens and stuff. So media only screen with a max width of 720 pixels. So be doing that, so more so to control the screen. So if it's a minimum, between a minimum and a maximum, then that's, you want X amount of padding or whatever, right? So like this one, we were changing font size depending on the size of the screen. So yeah, min-max, just minimum, maximum size range. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory as well. But again, it's just putting instead of having to do minimum width, maximum width, the min-max. Min-max just takes care of both of those at one time by just putting in, you could even just put width, min-max. So gap, this deals with like the stuff in between here, like the row gap and column gap, the different types of gap. So yeah, that's just to control the space in between, so it just looks nice and uniform. Yeah, so you can see right here, gap of 0, gap of 10%, 1 EM, just changing the gap in between everything. And this one thrown into calc too, like we were talking about, I believe it was the last video with the calc. So if you're not quite sure on how big the space is, but you know you want it a little bit smaller than X amount, there we go. Object fit, where did we use that on this one? There it is, the image, the cover. Is that right near the top? It is. So I believe that's this cover image. So object fit. It sets how the content of a replaced element, such as an image or a video, should be resized to fit its container. So just so that we could fit it inside the window. Because it was pretty huge. It was massive. And then so we get rid of this. Bam. Object fit. Pretty simple, but yeah. Object fit, cover the space that it's supposed to be in. There is a visible border in between here. So, and then we've got grid auto. This one is again for auto placing. Like obviously with the word auto, you always know it means for placement of where it is. Yeah, so we've got grid auto flow with the row, and so as you can see, of course, it's to take up the space one by one, and so 1 fits in this row, but 2 would not, and so it takes up a new row, but 3 is smaller, so it does fit on the end of the second row, and then we got 4 and 5, so it's based on the rows here. Columns, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, then 5, because these two fit underneath the same column, and so they make a row inside that column. And then dense, this one, I believe it's you don't have the free spaces, and so since 2 doesn't fit on 1 in this row, it goes down, but there is space for 3, so 3 gets kind of densed up into there. So again, just for placements and how much space to take up and things like that. the usual auto for on a grid, right? And then float. We used the float. There we go, float left. And so that was the first paragraph. So this one right here, float left. And you see how it's actually pertaining to first paragraph, first letter, which we haven't done. So obviously it takes the very first letter of that paragraph and it'll style it like this. So we have it way larger, like you see a lot of the time, even in novels and things. We've changed the color, float left, so it's on floats to the left of its container. But you can do right, top, bottom, center, of course, and then the margin right. And so it just has a little bit of space in between right here, right? So that one definitely for styling, for certain things, of course. Like I said, novels and I guess novelization I was trying to say, but novels, articles, things like that always do have that. So you'll be using that quite a bit. The first letter is a neat one too. You can also do, I believe, last letter. That's the only other one I can remember off the top of my head. So list style type, that one is, hold on one sec. Oops. There we go. So list style type, we used that on the lists, which the lists, if we is that one? No, this one, right? Yeah, here we go. So the lists are all right here, and underneath the brief history here, right? And so the list style type none, but the style type CSS property sets the marker such as a disk character or custom counter style of a list item. And so it's these things just right here, but what we usually see are these. And so since we didn't want these showing up, the little dots, like you would usually see, this one actually, little thumbs up, we didn't want those, so that's why it's set to none. But you can do a bunch of different ones, and even change like colors and stuff like that. So pretty cool. But a lot of the time you're not going to want that in something like an article and things like that. But if you're making a cool little, I don't know, infographic type website thing, I'm not quite sure, but you know, for style it would be cool. Maybe you're making a kid's website or something, so you want to animate them and make it look cool, right? But yeah, that's just list style type, and so it just takes the points of a list, changes what the point is. The loading, we've already done lazy loading, so that was actually the magazine. It wasn't so hard. It was a lot of stuff that we already knew. Like I said, we learned a bit of new stuff, but really didn't use too much of it. But just took some of the new stuff and used it a lot, you know. Didn't learn a lot of new stuff, but used this stuff we learned a lot. So yeah, that one, it was pretty fun, pretty good. But we're gonna go on to the better project, in my opinion. I actually really had fun doing the next one. It was the city skyline here. Let me just make sure I've got everything up. Yeah, so I will get that all ready, and I will be back in just a moment. All right, so yeah, let's talk about the city skyline. This was a fun one. We did use a little bit more of the media stuff, so it changes for different screen sizes and stuff, and kept it so you can see a big change with what we're going to learn first, which is the route. But we'll just explain what's going on. So we've got the background buildings and the sky, all in the same div here, so that can be all stylized with the two different classes here, so sky and background buildings, and then foreground buildings. So we have a few that are like in the front here. You'll be able to see better when I get to the route part of this. Yeah, so we have it all broken down to different windows, buildings, and then we made different colors and stuff, which that's what we'll get to with this var thing here, and then just a variation on radial gradient. So we didn't learn any crazy new things, but just used a lot of what we knew to do layering and do the different windows and all that kind of stuff. So it's, of course, we've got everything as border box, and then we've got root. So with root here, it essentially breaks it down so that it matches the root element. So like in this case, the root element HTML rather, the root represents that, exactly this, the HTML right there. And so that would be like the selector of it. So all the root, anything that's inside the HTML here, which is everything other than doc type, of course, that will actually be set to these colors. So anything with these classes or whatever will have this, and that will set the root color of these, which we will pull up later on with, we'll just get to it because that one's pretty easy. Root, you'll do that for, you can use root for font sizing and stuff like that, and then go in, use the media, and of course we use media to change the colors, because you're probably thinking, what the hell, why are those colors not this? Why is it not a pink? This is not my beautiful purple. This is not my brilliant green. And how did we get here? So with the media we changed it, of course. Max width 100 pixels, or 1000 pixels rather. Of course this is not 1000 pixels, but my screen is larger than 1000 pixels, so when we go up, boom, everything changes. So you can actually see this radial gradient and stuff too a bit better when we do that. But yeah, here so you can see the foreground buildings now much better, like I was saying. The background buildings, and then the background, nice bright sunny day, and then boom, all of a sudden it looks like Batman's gonna be jumping all nimbly bimbly from the tops of these roofs. So with that one, the root, we can see here we just use the same, change building color and stuff to this when it's like we do with any of the roots, or the medias rather. Also changing the sky background, which we can see here. Background color, here we go. So you can see we have all those colors set up here. Boom, 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 boom. We don't have anything that says like building color on here. It's not a class, right? So with this, we're actually just setting these colors to be used from root with the variable function here. It's a CSS variable, the var. And so what you can do is set those, and instead of having to put in building color, this entire thing every single time, onto different things, and just copy paste. Easy enough to remember building color, right? So now you can pull it in as a variable color from the root and bring it up to here, and so that's how we get all these classes colored in those colors. So yeah, that's pretty much all it is. It's essentially just using a calculation to remember what this is, and change the color according to it. So pretty easy as well. You can see right here what I mean. We've got three colors set, so var, boom, and yeah, that one's pretty simple actually. Again, you just have to use the syntax with the double dash and set that, and so you can set that in root and use that for a bunch of different things all the way through, right? Just pulling in the color by var, much easier than having to try to remember like, oh, B5, 6, 7, FF sort of thing, you know? Yeah, it's just ease of life, and much easier to just look at that and be like, oh, building color 1, what's building color? Oh, okay, boom. So, and then radial gradient is one that we learned. So we've already learned about repeating gradient and linear gradient, but radial gradient is for like circles. So that's how we get this, the moon and the sun, boom, boom. And radial gradients, if you read what it is, it seems much more confusing than it is. So it took me a little bit to figure out exactly what it meant. Not a really long time, but it was much more confusing than I thought at first. So we get rid of that. Radial gradient. So it's a CSS function, creates an image consisting of a progressive transition between two or more colors that radiate from an origin. Its shape may be a circle or an ellipse. And so right here you can see ellipse is the default. But yeah, we'll get to closest side and all that stuff. And then obviously you can set it to be a circle or an ellipse. But yeah, so we'll get into the syntax. Radial gradient is specified by indicating the center of the radial, or of the gradient rather, where the 0% ellipse will be, and the size and shape of the ending shape 100% ellipse. So here we go, values. The position of the gradient interpreted in the same way as background position or transform origin. If unspecified, it defaults to the center, of course, which we always know. So that's actually what we'll see right here is the 1515. So it'll be actually with this, the center is set 15% from the left, 15% from the top of the screen here. 15, 15. So we're in a perfect square, so of course. But that's why you see it move over a little bit. 15% at the width, 15% from the top. And then right here is where it gets a little confusing. Of course, we've specified circle, and then closest corner. And so we'll get to these right here. That's the sizing. And so it determines the size of the gradient's ending shape. If omitted, it defaults to the furthest corner. So of course it just stretches out so that it fits into the whole thing there. It can be given explicitly or by keyword. For the purpose of keyword definitions, consider the gradient box edges as extending indefinitely in both directions rather than being finite line segments. Both circle and ellipse gradients accept the following keywords for their sizes. Okay, so we're just going to look at this. You're going to see some changes here. So we're just going to specify that it's a circle at 1515. We'll just see how much bigger it is. Boom. It's still got the gradient, right? It's just spreading out into like an infinite amount. And so Control V, whoops, Control Z, Control Z. There we go. Closest corner, Control S, and so now you can see it radiating out, but all of this is still the same color all the way through because the gradient stops. And it's because we have closest corner, and of course the closest corner to 1515, the center here, is this corner here. So the gradient's actually stopping right here. Of course it's clipping at the top there because we're not considering the sides at all, which is what we can do. But I'll also show you, like it says, the default is furthest corner. Oops, furthest. And so bam, so there's that default, right? You can see now the gradient goes all the way to here. It's not going out forever. But yeah, the gradient stops down here, furthest corner from there. Right there. It's all a little bit lighter there. It's a massive moon. That's no moon. But yeah, you can even do sides, so closest side, and of course the closest side to here is this one. And so now you can see it changes the size of the moon and the sun there, because now the gradient stops right here. And now if you do furthest side, now it stops over here. Furthest side from here. So you can see it clips up out of there. but that's because it's not considering those. It's only considering this. So, yeah, not too complicated, but the way it's worded, sometimes it makes it a little bit more like, what's going on, huh? I just went to the GPT and was like, okay, let me know if this is right, and I was right, so that's cool. What were we? We were the closest corner, I believe, right? Yeah. There we go. Looking good there. But yeah, so it was pretty fun doing that. Quite a bit of different stuff to work with. Like what we could do just to make it even better, you know, like go through, give each of these windows and stuff, or at least some of the windows different ones, and give them this color so it looks like some are on, some are off. We can even make it so that like this actually is kind of cool. I like take the old where is it? Not building color, we want window color. This one's fun. Boom, now it looks like the lights coming up the building there. Of course, it changes these windows though, but that's what I was talking about, changing. Obviously, you just change whatever these are in the class. Make more classes with different ones and specify these, you know? You make them make different colors and stuff. Could even do it like boom and boom and boom. Make all 3 different ones different colors. That'd be neat, right? So yeah, a lot of things you could do. And it's the radial gradient's pretty cool. I know there's other things like conic gradient and stuff too. I imagine we're going to eventually learn that in the next ones, right? Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. I think that's pretty much all we really learned on this one that was a little bit different. Put that back. Whoops. Put everything back to normal, and then I can play around with it another time. But yeah, and then there's the final one for this one. This is only 2, but again, these projects took quite a bit of time, just because of a lot of the different CSS stylings and stuff like that, and then learning the variable and which color to put on each variable, and all that kind of stuff. So it just took a little bit, but yeah, quite a bit of cool stuff to learn off that one. And like I said, I'll be doing the live stream, and I believe I need to do section 3 live stream as well. I can't remember if I did that one on the live stream. It's been a few days here, but I just got to take a look at that, and then yeah, so I should be back tomorrow. Peace.